Hello, this is just a small video that I wanted to share about one of the input library of Python, which is inspect. I recently came across one of the scenarios, and that's where this inspect library really helped me. So let's quickly look at the problem. This is pretty straightforward. We are calling the main, and in main we are calling a method, and to that method we are passing another method as a parameter. If you just look at the current structure of this sync method, it's a synchronous method, and it's an iterator, 0 to 4, and just printing that values. And this async function is receiving that function and just executing it. So if I run it, I get the desired output, which is sync integration 0 1 2 3 4. Now, uh, over the period of time, the scope of this function or this program increased in a way that you also have another function, which is an asynchronous function. And the iterator, just for clarity or simplicity, we just keep it what we already have. And then I put as async function or iterator, really doesn't matter, and I'm printing the value of I, and then just so that I can see the value getting loaded, I just mark it as a sleep of 2 seconds. Now I want to use the same method to test my async function. Now what will happen if I utilize the same is async function and pass it my async function as a parameter? Let's look at this. So the sync one worked as expected, but the async one failed, saying that the coroutine async function was never awaited. So the expectation is when this async function goes as a parameter, when we are executing it, we are awaiting it. But if we await it, or let's try to do this, if we await it, we will have to mark this function as async, and then we will have to await this, and it will be await for both, and then we will also have to mark this as async, and then the way we call this method also completely changes, and we have async io and dot run main and an extra w. Let's see what this behaves. So the sync again works perfectly fine. But the error is that when we are awaiting it, it says, okay, when we are sending the sync function to be awaited, it is throwing an error that none can be used in an await expression. I wonder why. But that being said, the another error is that the sync function, we are trying to await it, and that's really not possible. So that's where this inspect property comes into picture. Before we await a particular function or before we execute a function, we check if that particular method is a coroutine, is a coroutine function, is coroutine function, and we check that for the input function. If this is true, we await that function, else we just execute that function. I think this should do the work. Let me execute it. Yeah. Why is it not able to sleep? Sleep was never awaited. Okay, sorry. This should also be awaited. So sync works fine, and async is working and giving the value after every 2 seconds. So this is what we wanted to do, a simple function which accepts another function as a parameter. We incorporated the capability of passing either the synchronous function as a parameter or an asynchronous function, and the code will work similar for both the scenarios. All right, thank you so much for having a look.